in the UK. Air Force bases within the UK that are protected by the Royal Air Force have been swarmed by what they're calling drones, but we don't really know what they are because they've been chased by F-15s multiple nights, and they're way faster than F-15s. We're talking about F-15 planes. Those are fighter jets, some of the fastest in the world.
Have been deployed to protect US air bases in the United Kingdom amid growing fears that Russia may be behind an ongoing spate of sabotage drone sorties. A number of drones, swarms of small drones, we understand, have been detected near 3 US air bases: Mildenhall, Lakenheath and Feltwell, which are all 3 in East Anglia, used for different purposes. Now, these were first detected at least a week ago, last Wednesday. There was another incident on Friday, and there is an ongoing incident today, Tuesday. So at least 3 occasions over the last week when unidentified drones have interfered with operations at major US air bases on British soil. None of these drones have actually been captured, so there's some mystery over exactly what these devices are. And we haven't seen any photographs. The US military has described them as small, but we haven't heard any more than that. But clearly drones over airfields are a real hazard, and they interfere with the operations of those airfields because planes cannot take off or land safely if there's a risk of them colliding with another aircraft in the sky in their flight path over or near the runway. So this is an ongoing situation.
Troy, 2 oggetti molto veloci stanno venendo verso di noi.
Sì, vedo i segnali radar. Proviamo a seminarli al minimo d'energia.
Raggio di portata, capitano.
Tienili sotto tiro.
Capitano, ci stanno seminando.
Impossibile. I russi non hanno motori tanto veloci.
Usciranno dal raggio di portata.
Fuoco sul bersaglio. Troy, cercano di colpirci.
Capitano, sono scomparsi dal mio schermo radar.
Tonight, there was another little incursion that you could even hear a bang in the background. Here's the clip.
Getting U.S. bases, kind of swarming U.S. bases, challenging security. Do you believe they have hostile intent? Do you believe they were sent by a foreign adversary? What is happening with, what can you tell us about these drones?
What I would tell you, Jennifer, is that they are being actively monitored. Installation leaders have determined so far that none of these incursions impact the base residents, the facilities, or the assets that we have on those bases. We're, of course, continuing to work with host nation authorities and our mission partners to ensure the safety of our personnel, our facilities, and the equipment. You know, the bottom line is it's something that we're going to take seriously. We're continuing to look into it, but as of right now has not had any significant mission impact.
Why not shoot them down?
Well, I won't get into force protection measures. We, of course, always maintain the right to defend ourselves if we deem something to be a threat. But again, we'll continue to work with the local host nation authorities there.
Do you think it's linked to the drones that were sighted at 3 or 4 different locations back in December of last year that we reported on recently on the state side?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate and draw unnecessary connections. You know, again, this is something that we'll look into. As you know, small UASs, drones, have become something that's, you know, relatively common now across the landscape. It's something that the department has been looking closely at in terms of how it applies to our facilities, our personnel, whether it's in combat zones or outside of combat zones. But in terms of these particular incidents, in the UK versus the ones in the States, again, I don't want to speculate that there's any
Don't
connection.
appear to be those of hobbyists. Is that correct?
Again, it would be, premature to draw any conclusions. We've got to see what these are. I mean, it's entirely possible that it could be hobbyists or something else. We just got to look into it. So come over here. Yes, sir.
Thank you, General.
But the bottom line is, again, still assessing what these are, and just don't have anything further to pass along. I'd refer you to U.S. Air Forces in Europe, which I'm sure you're in contact with, just to keep in touch on the latest on that.
And can you share anything yet about how you guys are detecting or countering them?
Again, I don't want to get into the specifics in terms of tactics, techniques, and procedures as it relates to force protection. Certainly, we have a variety of means at our disposal, and we will protect our personnel and our facilities. But, again, just to kind of put this into context, even here in the United States, right, if there are drones that are being flown by hobbyists or some other entity, you want to make sure that you're doing due diligence not only to protect yourself and the safety of others, but also using appropriate measures in order to not inadvertently create second and third order effects. In other words, potentially harming the civilian communities in which we operate in and around. So again, right now the assessment is that these drones have had no operational impact or safety impact on our personnel at any of these facilities. We're keeping a close eye on them. We're of course communicating very regularly with the UK host nation authorities, and we'll take appropriate measures again to protect our personnel and our people. Sure.
Just a quick follow-up. Have there been any drone incidents domestically since October?
That's a hard question to answer, Jen, because I mean the reality is on any given day, Pat Ryder, hobbyist drone pilot, can fly my drone next to a base and it's in and it's out. And is that a drone incident, or are we talking about something more serious, where like the Langley incident, where there's multiple drones operating over a facility for multiple days? So, again, I don't have any statistics in front of me, but just the reality is that these small aircraft are now ubiquitous across the United States and the world. I have a very close relative of mine who's a drone pilot, and he flies his drone all over and does amateur photography, and what if that drone gets blown or carried by the wind too close to a facility, or they don't understand the FAA rules, et cetera, et cetera. So this is something that the department, the FAA, and others are looking at in this modern era of small aircraft. How do we make sure that we're responsibly protecting our assets while at the same time not assuming every single aircraft is going to be a threat? So thank you, Charlie.
Welcome back. I hate to go on about it too. However,
please do drone on.
I have to drone on. This is the third time in 2 weeks. They appear to be coordinated, persistent operations, not the work of a hobbyist. There are reports out of Britain that 60 military personnel have been deployed, 60 British personnel have been deployed. Does this come down to the MOD? Is it down to the Home Office? I mean, there are other ways of taking down drones without shooting them down.
Yeah, and you're right. And again, I won't speak for the MOD. And as I highlighted, of course, the U.S. Military are guests in England, in the United Kingdom, at the invitation of the government of the United Kingdom. So certainly working very closely with the authorities there. We are taking it seriously. We're monitoring, taking appropriate measures. Again, I'm not going to get into the specific TTPs in terms of when and if we feel that we need to take something down. At this point, the assessment is that these do not pose any type of effect on our operations or safety of our personnel. So I don't have an answer. I'd have to refer you to USAFE, but I mean, it's not uncommon if we have small teams that go around the world that are specialists in various capabilities. So I don't have an answer to that question. But I mean, you've got RAF Mildenhall, RAF Lakenheath, RAF Feltwell. All those bases are in close proximity. I mean, literally minutes away from each other. So, again, we'll continue to keep an eye on it. But as of right now, I would just, caution jumping to conclusions about what this is and who's doing it. And we'll just, continue to keep you updated.
I have an unrelated question.
And answers into mysterious drones spotted over U.S. military bases in England over the past several days. The U.S. Air Force says the drones have not impacted the bases or their residents, but it hasn't ruled out if they were sent by agitators. Let's get right to our News Nation special correspondent, Ross Coulthard. Ross, anytime we hear about something flying in a restricted space, it causes concern. Several drones spotted over 3 different military bases over several days. You posted on social media about those sightings. What can you tell us about what you've learned?
Well, Nick, the interesting thing about this whole saga is how little the Air Force has been able to tell us about what they're seeing, because there have been at least 5 nights, possibly 6 nights, of unexplained incursions by what the Air Force describes as drones over 3 of the most sensitive US bases, or British bases where the US Air Force is based, in the United Kingdom. That's Mildenhall, Lakenheath and Feltwell. And what distinguishes all of those bases is that it's very likely all of them have nuclear weapons. So this is a very grave situation. Unexplained incursions by unexplained drones, multiple drones, dozens in some cases, and there has not been any attempt, as far as I can see, to successfully bring down one of these objects so that we can be told what they are and where they come from.
The connection between UFOs and nuclear weapons has been documented as far back as the very first atomic blast, the Trinity explosion in 1945 New Mexico. Since then, hundreds of former military personnel have come forward with reports of unknown craft buzzing nuclear tests, atomic labs, and missile bases. A group of former officers told about their encounters at a Washington news conference in October of this year. Investigator Robert Hastings has obtained hundreds of pages of once classified Pentagon files about these incidents and has personally interviewed more than 150 retired military officers about ominous encounters involving nuclear weapons.
UFOs have routinely monitored our nuclear weapons going back decades.
The national security implications are a major reason former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid co-sponsored a once secret UFO investigation overseen by the DIA. But the UFO nukes connection is much stranger than mere unknown craft in the sky.
Ross, now the U.S. Air Force did confirm that the sightings were unmanned aerial systems or drones. Do you believe that they are drones?
We've got to be skeptical about this because we've seen no evidence of this to date, Nick. And as you would know on our show Reality Check, for some time we've been reporting on similar sightings of so-called drones over places like Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, the Plant 42 at Palmdale in California, and also the Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey. That happened in, I think, 18th of November, just before these latest incidents. Now we've got these incidents over the 3 Air Force bases in the United Kingdom. And in none of these cases have any of these devices, these alleged drones, been recovered. So I think we're entitled to be skeptical, and the public's allowed to ask questions. Why can't the Pentagon answer a very basic question? Why do they say these are drones, and where are they coming from? And can we be assured that they are not a threat?
And speaking on the not a threat, so far, Ross, help me here, none of them have appeared to be hostile, but that still doesn't necessarily give everyone great comfort.
Well, we deployed, if you remember, Nick, in February last year, we deployed F-22 fighters to shoot down what we were told were balloons flying over the continental USA. It's a very interesting situation that we know that fighter jets have been scrambled from some of these bases in the United Kingdom. They've been flying without transponders, so we haven't been able to track them to see where they're going and where they're maneuvering. But there has been an air tanker refueling them, and they've been operating on afterburners. So it's quite clear that the military is taking this extremely seriously, and the British government has also brought in military assistance of its own to help the US Air Force deal with finding out any more that we can about these objects. At the moment, I think all we can legitimately say is they're objects and they're unexplained.
And they're unexplained.
And they don't know what these are. And they're not being overly alarmed about it. The thing is that a few minutes ago in Washington, D.C., this happened. Yeah. So it's happening in the UK near Air Force bases where there are a lot of weapons there and uranium storage there for nuclear weapons. And then here in Washington, D.C., we got a bunch of these also over the Capitol. What the hell is going on?